Hello, welcome to my channel, that Mishlei guy, where most days we open our Bibles to the book of Proverbs and examine one specifically and break it down low and slow, word by word from its original Hebrew. But what we're in the middle of right now is something slightly different. We're doing just a video series on a specific topic, and that is wisdom. We've done two primer videos beforehand, one just to lay the groundwork, one to establish the idea of what are known as the internally developed traits. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the ones that are developed externally. And the main reason that we're doing this is I don't want to have to explain each of these terms in depth every single time that they appear in the Proverbs, because they're pretty immense. The first three terms that we covered, they appeared 70 different times, 40 times as nouns and 30 times as verbs. And today, the ones that we're going to be talking about don't appear as frequently, but they are in there quite a bit. They're 43 times as nouns and 5 times as verbs. So, these are very, very, very prevalent themes all throughout the Proverbs, as well it should be. The entire book is about wisdom. And the analogy I kind of like to use is that the internally developed traits, they're kind of like the gas pedal on the car. That's what makes it go. But in order for it to be safe, just like you wouldn't get in a car with no brakes, your mind, your wisdom, it's going to need something to slow it down. And that's going to be the wisdom that comes from sources outside of yourself. Those are the brakes. And the big reason why those are so very, very important is it's all over the Proverbs, is this warning against relying on your own wisdom and becoming arrogant, and how to stay in humility. Well, that's going to come from the externally developed traits. And really developed is probably a bit of a misnomer. They're received more than they are developed. To the degree that they're developed, are you developing the relationships with people that you can trust to put this wisdom in you from outside? So the big thing is that the internal ones, these are developed independently. This is something that someone does in their own time. For a real quick recap, that's the three major ones are dot, which is knowledge, binah, which is understanding, and tevunah, which is insight and discernment. But we're going to look at 4 different terms, and these are the ones that these come from dependency. They come from an external source, which means that they come from relationship. So the first term that we're going to look at is this idea of Torah, and that appears 4 times as noun. And its sister term is Musar. One without the other is really no good, so you really need these two working in tandem, Torah and Musar. But Musar appears 21 times in the Proverbs as a noun, and 5 times as the verb to instruct. The next term is Etsah. That appears 9 times as a noun, meaning counsel, and 3 times as a personage of counselor or advisor, and that term is yoatz. And then our last time is Tahbulot, and this one appears 6 times as a noun, and that means wise guidance and strategic planning. So we'll go ahead and jump in right away. The first of the externally received wisdom is Torah. And if you've heard this term, it's because Torah with a capital T is the Mosaic law. It means these are the teachings. But with the lowercase t, this just means in general a very a different type of teaching or instruction. And it comes from a primitive root verb, yara, and it means to point or to instruct, to show the way. And when you put it in the T nominal form, then it becomes the noun Torah, a teaching. And the idea is that this is the kind of guidance that comes from a relationship of someone teaching you. And that's chiefly going to be the parents. From day one, whenever a child is born, traditionally in Judaism, the parents begin immediately instructing and shaping and forming this child, not just with information, but also with morals. And there's a type of Torah that is passed on communally just by being within that culture. And it's the inherited truth from the previous generations that there's just a living memory of those who have come before you have figured a lot of things out. And so they pass them along. And the goal is to integrate all of these things of your cognition, and your morality. So all learning, all teaching is morally shaped from the Jewish perspective, which, your Savior, Jesus, Yeshua, he's coming out of that. But the sister term is Musar, and this one appears a lot more frequently in the Proverbs, and that comes from a primitive root verb yasar, which means to chasten or to correct or to discipline. And when you put it in this miktal form, the miktal pattern, it becomes what's known as the noun of instrument. When you have the letter mem at the beginning of the word, that's going to take it from its action to its noun. And this is the complement to teaching, because the instruction is going to come from being instructed. It's the musar, then is the action itself. And musar is to make sure that you actually understand what has been taught to you, and it identifies where the error is. And this is the kind of discipline that will move your knowledge to understanding. So when we talked about the internally developed traits, that dot is how you compile the information, but binah is how you show proficiency, because you're able to identify what is incorrect. And so very much the way that binah is the refining of knowledge, Musar is the refining of Torah. And Musar always comes from the external authority. Usually it's the parent. But as one progresses through life, that can be the teacher, that can be the priest or the rabbi, and also the scripture itself provides musar, as when you're able to identify where you're going astray, it gives you the example and the correction pattern. And musar comes from God himself. As a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit. It'll convict you of what exactly you are not doing right. But the main reason why you see Musar constantly emphasized in the Proverbs is because most people's inclination is to run the other direction. That we hate it. Nobody likes being told you're wrong, or being corrected, or having your error, put on blast, and having it to where people are discussing it and talking about it and kind of identifying it for you. But in order to grow, you have to learn to develop this love for correction and discipline, to where you want to purge everything incorrect out of you, that you have this just rigid devotion to identifying and adopting things that are true. And in this process, this is how you will build humility. And it doesn't hurt as much to be told you're wrong, when this is your ultimate goal. If your goal is just being right for being right's sake, then yeah, Musar hurts. And because it means that someone else is right and you are wrong, and you have to change. So Musar is how pain gets converted into wisdom. So wise people, they really embrace it. And the amazing thing with the Musar is it's sort of a double entendre. So this placing of the mem at the beginning of it makes it reflexive, this verb yasar. So in reality, Musar is the bridge between the internal developed wisdom and the external received wisdom, because once you have received the Musar, it's inside of you. Now you have the ability to discipline your own self. So when we look at it in that sense, yasar with the mem in front of it, it means self-discipline. You're able to self-regulate. It becomes your personal code. So in that sense, Musar is also a personal virtue. Is this idea that you are under control, that you are able to discipline yourself, that you can establish a goal and stick to it. And that this is a very good positive character trait to develop. So are there any drawbacks or any challenges to Torah and Musar? Well, I mean, no, virtually there are none. The only, I guess, warning of Torah and Musar that there would be is to make sure that the person who's providing the Torah and Musar is qualified themselves to give it. So make sure that the teacher knows, make sure the corrector is correct. But pretty much at this point in human history, every new concept has been tried. The ones that worked stuck around. The ones that did not were discarded. So, this is pay attention to history and tradition and scripture and culture, and we've got a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. And if you allow yourself to be conformed to this pattern, you will rocket to the head of the line. And what we see in the Proverbs is it's used, the Musar is 25 different times, and virtually every single one of these times is a warning to not depart from it, to not forget about it, to listen to it in the first place, to keep the Musar. And I think the reason why the book of Proverbs and Solomon just reinforce this over and over and over and over, and hammer this point again and again and again of adopt to the Musar, don't forget the Musar, is that's the thing that we're most likely to either reject or forget about or depart from it. So those warnings are there because we have to be on guard of our natural tendency to disregard the Musar. So our next term, this is Etsah, and this is the noun form of a base primitive root verb, ya'atz. And so it means an advice or plan. And when someone becomes the person who's giving the advice or announcing the plan, they become the yoetz, the person who gives the advice and the counsel. And so between these two terms, it appears 12 times. This is outside input. This is something that is not coming from inside of the individual. And I kind of consider Etsah this is a type of wisdom where you're going to want to build a good network around you. These are going to be, who are your closest friends? Who are the people that you bounce ideas off of? These are people who you ask what their opinion on something is. If you're in a position of leadership, these are your qualified lieutenants beneath you. So Etsah is very similar to the last term that we're going to cover, Tahbulot, but counsel is slightly different than strategy, but it is the idea that with Etsah, it's generally a peer or a subordinate, whereas Tahbulot, this idea of guidance, this is usually somebody who's a superior to you or somebody who's an authority on a field, but they're an individual that you're going to defer to. You're going to let them develop the plan, and you're going to be comfortable with taking a subordinate role within their guidance. So the counsel is going to compile all the different options and sort of put them all out on the sorting table and determine what the correct course is. Tahbulot is actually going to have the strategy of how to implement it. So these two things are really, they go hand in hand, but again, they're slightly different, and the nuance does matter because they do appear all over the Proverbs. And something that a wise man is going to have is both of these things. So the main reason why we want Etsah, why we want counsel, why we want advice, is because there's strength in numbers. There's something to a collective intelligence. There's an understanding that a man, no matter how wise he is, can't see everything, that vision is limited, and that isolation is a sure recipe for failure, that you really need more opinions on something important. And the other thing is let's say that you are correct, that you are wise and you don't need anybody's opinion. At least having somebody to bounce the idea off of or run it past will confirm that it's accurate. It's a sort of a last check. And the big thing is if somebody doesn't have wise counsel, if they don't have a peer group, if they don't have people who are able to give qualified input, well, then you're going to have an extreme form of pride develop. And this is a major character flaw. And it really causes even somebody who under normal circumstances would be a wise person, if they do not have this, it's not going to work out well for them. And once you're in a leadership position, you don't want to be necessarily the point man on every single thing. Like you have a limited amount of resources. Like you need to free up some of them to have people that you can delegate things. As basically, you cannot be wise and surrounded by fools. You have to have competent people that are, discussing things with you. And the last form of counsel that's so very, very important that so many people forget is God Himself. You need to ask God His opinion. You need to get into a place where you can meditate and pray and hear God's voice, because no serious decision should ever be made without seeking the counsel of the Lord. And the most important thing to remember is that the Mishlei, all of these proverbs, these were meant for King Solomon to prepare his lineage, that they were going to be princes. Is like, this is going to teach a king how to be a king. So at its core, every single one of the Mishlei are advice for leadership. He's providing Etsah, and essentially a leader with no advisors, they're going to miss something, and every single person has blind spots, and we're all victims of our own subjective reasoning. We have these subconscious things that are going to distort our ability to see things in a true way. So, again, looking at Solomon as the model, the author of these things, is no one had as much wisdom as this guy as an individual, but even he is sitting there saying again and again and again, you need other people's advice. He knew he couldn't do it alone. So, what are one of the main things that prevent people from developing Etsah? Well, it's pride. In order to receive good advice, you have to have humility, and you need to not be certain of yourself. And at a certain point there, confidence is an aspect of leadership. But if you're self-certain, you're going to miss something. And you need to have the humility to at least seek someone else's input. And other thing is, a lot of times people who don't want outside advice, it's because there's a certain level of insecurity that they operate in, where they have to present this, just, I don't know, over the top image of confidence, because if they don't, they'll look or feel incompetent. It's an overcompensation. And between these two things, being self-certain and insecure, this is where you'll see a lot of people build echo chambers. They don't trust anyone. They don't develop good communication skills. And you'll see this. You'll see people that the moment someone tries to give them friendly advice, they immediately dismiss it. They argue with them. They interrupt it. They tear it down. Other things that can prevent people from building a network or relying on a network is, a lot of times they're just impatient. They just want to go ahead and make a decision and get it done right away. A lot of times it's not even necessarily their fault, that there may not be great options. They don't have experienced candidates. They don't have a good set of people to select from. And the big thing with the idea of the Etsah is a fool will have all of these traits in reverse. He's going to isolate himself. He's going to trust his own decision-making skills. And more than anything, he's going to despise correction or anybody else's opinion on stuff. So if you begin to recognize these things inside of yourself, you need to understand that you will not develop wisdom until you really embrace these ideas as a counterbalance to your own. So we will move on to our last term, and that is the idea of Tahbulot. And this one appears, it's not a very frequently used one. It's only appears in 6 of the Proverbs. And the primitive verb here is, it's a nautical term. It means to pull with a rope or to wind up a rope. And the idea being that this is strategic maneuvering, as in the age of sail, it was an inexact thing where you'd have a goal out on the horizon that you're trying to get to, and the wind would be changing, the water conditions would be changing. You'd have this, you'd have to be able to pull and loosen these ropes to get the sail to move, to kind of guide and maneuver you. There's not a straight path. And Essentially, this is the idea that counsel, Etsah, is going to be someone giving advice to you, but you still are the one who ultimately makes the decision. The big difference here with Tahbulot is you have confided in someone else or someone that you've trusted as an expert, or they're your superior and they've come up with the plan, and they are guiding you. So this is the ability to have the humility to see yourself as a participant as opposed to a leader. And uh, so many plans, they have to have a built-in flexibility, just like maneuvering the ship, to where when to pull and loosen these ropes to get to where you're going to. And a person who's in a position of leadership, they themselves are going to have to be able to give Tahbulot to others through delegation and training and teaching people beneath them. But more than anything, you're going to have the ability to defer to the wisdom of someone else. And Tahbulot is ultimately, it's about having the humility that you place the success of the mission above your own personal glory, that you don't have to be the one who comes up with the plan. You don't have to be the one who enacts it. You don't have to be the hero. You build an organization, and you have an accountability built in, because what you'll actually see is with Tahbulot is you don't want heroes. You want effective systems. You want wise networks, because that's where strategy is actually going to emerge from. And when you start to see strategy as a group effort, not one guy, then you'll realize that it's formed externally, and it's again, it's a collective effort, and the person with wisdom is going to be okay with that. In fact, he's going to be more than okay with it. He's going to try to create it. And when we look at what are the obstacles to Tahbulot, and well, it's virtually the same thing as what are to Etsah. It's going to be pride. It's going to be over reliance on a person's self. It's going to be somebody that isn't good at forming teams and is not good at assessing character, or exercising good judgment. Many times the things that will cause someone not to be strategic is that they have a rigidity to them. They're not flexible, and they rely too much on their own experience, and they form a plan and they just stick to it. And there's a lot of things you're going to encounter problems that you need a certain level of creativity and an imagination to solve these problems, and to have people around you that have this skill. So when we look at these three external traits, the Proverbs actually identifies these three things that really the four, the Torah and the Musar, which kind of as sister terms would be one thing. The Etsah, the counsel, and the Tahbulot, the guidance, is that this is the main area where someone intelligent will fail. And they'll spend all their time developing the internal traits and think that those are going to be enough. And then what ends up happening is when we consider this idea that wisdom is a structure, and on one side you've got internal and the other side you've got external. Well, if you've only built internal, if you try to build anything on top of that, it's going to fall over. It's going to be an imbalanced building. It's not going to have the ability to have an offsetting force on the other side. And essentially what this means is the person who rejects the Musar, who rejects the Etsah, and rejects the Tahbulot, is they're building a system where there's zero accountability. It's a design failure. And this is foolishness personified. And the reason why this one comes up again and again and again and again in the Proverbs is because this is very common. This is what most people do. And being able to place the wisdom of others, someone that can give you the Musar, someone who can give you the Etsah, someone who can give you the Tahbulot. This is the mark of wisdom, because it places their wisdom above yours, which means it isn't prideful. And you want people around you who keep you accountable. And this balancing creates a stronger structure. And again, the big thing to remember is Solomon was the wisest man. If it wasn't going to work for him to do it that way, it won't for you. You're not smarter than Solomon. And that will kind of conclude our ground floor. We've built internal and external. And so the idea is that we've got this balanced structure where we are taking Dot and Binah and Tevianah very, very serious. And then on the other side of the building, we've developed this idea of Torah and Musar, of Etsah and Tahbulot. So now we're ready to build the next floor. And these are going to be the applied traits. There's 4 of them. And so when you combine them with these 6 that we've already talked about, these are the 10 stars that form this constellation of wisdom. And as we'll find out, it's an ecosystem. It's recursive. It builds itself. It reinforces itself. It flows back into itself. And it strengthens and heals itself and makes this very robust thing when you have all 10 of these things working together in concert. And hopefully that will complete the wisdom series. Thank you again. Shalom.